the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to?
Welcome to Street Talk. My name is Ammahad Shekarakki, and on Street Talk, what we try to do, we cover Lansing, state of Michigan, the U.S., and out of the U.S. We try to have a broad perspective on all these things, and we cover the political, social, and economics. And joining me tonight is one of my best friends, Mr. Dennis Burnside. Hey, welcome.
How you doing, brother?
Hey, all right.
All right.
Before we go all off on these other things, give us a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm a Lansingite. I've lived here since I left school more than 30 years ago, since I graduated college, and I've lived here all my adult life and made it my home. I've raised my children here and still raising children. And Lansing is my hometown now. I've been here longer than any city I've ever lived in, and I've really enjoyed it. And I love the city. I love the people. I love the friends and associations I've made here, and I'm very comfortable. Beyond that, I'm a man who really is an avid reader. I like to stay on top of current events. I'm a history buff. I'm also a political guy who's very interested in what's going on in national, international politics, more so than state and local, although I do follow those, that level too. And I always stress to people that I know and my relatives and friends that it's very important for us to be aware of what's going on around us. And in addition to that, we need to know who we are. We need to know our history. We need to know where we come from and how we got to this place and where we stand in the scheme of things. In order to truly understand everything that's going on around us, we need to know where we came from and how we got to this place. I sell medical devices for a living. I'm a family man, and other than that, I'm just your average Joe.
Before we go all off in the other things that we're going to talk about, let's talk a little bit about Malcolm. We've got the street, and let me first say to the people who helped to get this street, we really appreciate that, because you know and I know all these other people was you know, they helped to do this.
Oh, they were instrumental.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I want to say that I really appreciate everyone who was helping, and the people who was at home, who was hoping that we could get it and everything. But again, I want to say thanks to those people. The people on the boards downtown who was helping and all of that. We say thanks to all of those people.
Yeah, I want to give a hearty thanks to Doug Warren, who did yeoman's work behind the scenes, did a lot of work to make that happen. To Apache Mays, a good friend of mine, whose determination and firebrand spirit really helped make this possible. To Glenn Bivens, to Joe and Paul Pizzo, and too many other people that we couldn't list here. It was an international, multicultural effort. I've told this story a million times. I'll tell it one more time. When you first came to me with the idea of renaming Mason Street after Malcolm X, I told you out of your mind. And I didn't put it that nicely.
No,
I didn't think it would happen in a million years. I didn't think we had the political will nor the interest in this city to pursue such an endeavor. But to my pleasant surprise, I was wrong. And of all those people, I want to thank you, Ammahad, more than anyone, because without your vision and determination, and I stress determination, this would have never happened. And I've met people, including Dr. Austin Jackson from out of Michigan State and others, who have remarked how amazing they find it, how remarkable they find it to drive around Lansing and bump into the corner of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. It astounds them, and they wonder, how did this happen? You know, I was at at a library, at a meeting down at the downtown library several months ago. Doug Warren and I were there, and Professor Griff of Public Enemy fame was there speaking. And prior to him speaking, they had these gentlemen who've started this African American museum up in Ferris State in Big Rapids, Michigan. And they all mentioned, you know, this is pretty amazing that we have a Malcolm X and a Martin Luther King corner here. How'd that come to be? And I was all chest out. I mean, it was all I could do to keep from waving my hand and say, we did it. So I'm very proud of that. And again, I think it's something that I never expected to happen. And without you, we would have never seen the day.
There was other people, Carolyn Bowden, and just other people who really helped to do this. And we will always be in debt to them, but we're great to get it in Lansing.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, we've got we've been planning, well, we beginning to plan that in July next year, we're going to have a Malcolm X Day, which will be on a Saturday. But we had talked about it being the last Saturday in July, but I wanted to talk about backing it up maybe to the second Saturday in July, because the first Monday in August is when they have the
family.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that later. On the other hand, what do you think about Romney? He goes and get a guy who's more to the right than he is to be his vice president. What do you think is happening?
Well, in Romney, you have an empty suit. Romney's a man whose personal ambitions outweigh his integrity. He'll say and do anything in order to get a vote. He has been a far-left progressive who believed in a woman's right to choose, who believed in universal health care, who was, for lack of a better term, a liberal Republican, probably a moderate Democrat, certainly to the left of President Obama as we speak today. But for expediency and for his own career ambitions, he's moved steadily to the right, and now he's so far to the right that Richard Nixon could turn over in his grave and never cite him. I mean, he's way out there on the limb. You can pour into that empty vessel whatever fluid you want, and he'll regurgitate the lines that you want to, because the man has no principles. Beyond that, he's brought on as a running mate a guy who's almost as big a weather vane as Romney. When you look at his running mate, I don't see this tandem here having a very good chance of defeating Obama in the fall because of one issue and one issue only, and that's Medicaid. They just can't get around the fact that they've advocated in the past the dismantling of the Medicare and Medicaid programs. And people, I don't care if you're progressive, if you're a right-wing reactionary, if you consider yourself someone in the middle, everyone has a grandmother. Everyone has a grandfather, maybe a disabled child. Everyone depends on those programs. And enough people have a memory of what it was like. Maybe not for themselves personally, but for their father, maybe their uncle or their grandmother. They have enough memory of what it was like without that social safety net being in place, and they don't want to see it dismantled. So no matter how many ways that these guys can come along and say, well, I want to tweak it around the margins, when you start seeing, like, the Ryan budget came out, and you start looking at the details and how he wanted to treat Medicare, he was going to dismantle it. He was going to keep it in place for the people 55 and over. And for the future generations, it was going to be gone. You're going to have a voucher system which increasingly, as the years go by, has less and less value until such time as you really won't have any Medicare or medical coverage whatsoever. Now, that's fine. You could be the most unaware Archie Bunker, Edith Bunker, Fox News viewing type in the world, and you're going to have your Medicare provided to you until such time as you go home to glory.
Mm-hmm.
But those people, they have sons and daughters they're concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
They've got nieces and nephews and
Yeah.
grandchildren, and they shudder at the thought of what happened to their predecessors,
Mm-hmm.
now happening to their children.
Mm-hmm.
They've got enough memory. So Ryan is going to be a disaster. He's great for the Fox and Friends crowd
Mm-hmm.
on every issue that you can name until it comes down to the social safety net. When they start looking at dismantling Social Security, when they start looking to attempting to dismantling Medicare,
Mm-hmm.
it's a no-brainer. No one's going to go for that. And I think Obama and Biden are going to beat him up over that. Despite all his other faults, that's going to be the linchpin right there.
Well, we see, I was watching yesterday, I think it was, and he only, 39% of the people right now agree with him. They are saying that he's the worst vice president pick since
Dan Quayle.
Dan Quayle.
Right. And it's hard to be worse than Dan Quayle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet he could spell potato. But, again, he is, we have to look at this from the perspective of the people who are driving Ryan and Romney so far to the right. And that's the oligarchs.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big corporate behemoths, the big multinational corporations who don't give a damn about the United States of America.
Mm-mm.
They have no particular loyalty to the United States of America. They will offshore your jobs.
Mm-hmm.
They will make your children indentured servants for having the temerity of borrowing money to try to get an education.
Mm-hmm.
They will take away your health care. They will take away your security.
Mm-hmm.
They'll take away the value of your home. They'll take away your 401k. Not only will they have.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing they can offer the Archie Bunker type, the Fox News lovers, the people who are oblivious to reality,
Mm-hmm.
the one thing they can offer them is the poisonous social issues.
Mm-hmm.
They can talk about abortion but never address it.
Mm-hmm.
They could use racism. And they could make this environment so toxic and so dangerous that people are starting to be afraid of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be we were afraid of the bad guys from overseas,
Mm-hmm.
the so-called terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're starting to be afraid of each other.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
time you turn around, there's another shootout.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to see people become more and more angry and more fearful, and it's a perfect medium.
Mm-hmm.
It's a perfect petri dish
Mm-hmm.
for an oligarchic movement which has fascism at the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Which fascism is, again, it's a cooperative effort between a belligerent government with aggressive foreign policy
Mm-hmm.
and authoritarian leanings
Mm-hmm.
and their corporate masters
Mm-hmm.
who want the middle class obliterated, and they want to establish a new class of people who are pretty much serfs. They want us to work for subsistence levels,
Mm-hmm.
just enough to stay alive, to do their work.
Mm-hmm.
The new developing market is China,
Yep.
with its billion people. I mean, you could take the entire population of the United States out of China, 300 million people, and still have 1 billion left over.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they see their new money.
Yeah.
That's the market they're trying to develop now. They could care less about the United States, but you have almost half a slice of the American pie who reflexively vote for a party that runs on apple pie, baseball, red, white, and blue, national anthem, patriotism, which stands for none of those things.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care about you, Mr. and Mrs.
Right.
America. They could care less about your well-being. They don't care about that flag, and they don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about democracy. You can see in the way they run their elections.
Mm-hmm.
Democracy doesn't mean anything to them other than it's a pretense for them to use as an apparatus to consolidate power.
Yeah.
They pretend to give you a vote and they pretend to give you representation, but what they're really doing is consolidating power and taking away your wealth and security.
Well, we see now. We've seen in the last in 210 a whole kind of a shift, and one of the reasons is that the people to the left didn't get out to vote. People to the right, the way right, they went and they put these people up. But we also see that these governors who always elected. We see 7 to 9 of these states trying to change our voting. How about that? I mean, they are trying to in Florida. I believe it's Florida.
That's one of the states
where it's
Pennsylvania, Florida, Ohio, Wisconsin.
I believe it's Ohio where in the Republican district they can go they can vote on Saturday anytime.
Oh, that's Ohio.
Ohio.
That's Ohio.
And turn around in the district where Democrats, they can't.
Right.
I mean,
and their Secretary of State said just yesterday, which would be August 13th, 2012, said, well, I may reconsider that. I may reconsider that. Now, these are the people who will tell you that they love democracy.
Yeah.
They love the red, white, and blue. They're all American. But yet they consistently undermine the ability of the people to participate in their government. People who will do that aren't interested in democracy.
No.
People who will do that do not stand for the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Not that too many ever have. I mean, let's be honest about it. If you look at what the Constitution said from day one and how people in this country were treated who weren't white males who had property, Constitution didn't mean anything if you were a poor white cracker down in the South,
right,
or a slave, or a Native American, or a woman of any class. You didn't have the right to vote.
No.
You didn't have a voice.
No.
So the Constitution has always been a pretense, but it's been a framework that we could aspire to. And we've always, since the Roosevelt administration, seen progress towards a more inclusive, a more broad, or constitutionally strict society where everyone has the same rights. Never happened, but we were moving in that direction.
Right, yeah.
Well, now we've seen it regress since the 80s when Reagan came in.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, you were speaking of these governors that we have in the Midwest in particular, the guy in Indiana, our guy here in the state of Michigan. They all are part of an organization called ALEC, the American Legislation Exchange Committee. And what they do is they represent big corporations, they represent big multinational moneyed interests, and they literally, Ammahad, not suggest, not lobby, they literally write legislation. They invite these fools to their little seminars or their weekend retreats, and they ply them with food, and they ply them with alcohol, and they ply them with women, whatever they want. And at the end of the weekend, they send them home with a packet that says, just sign this and get this passed. And so when you see that happen, you see voting rights restricted. You see cities like Flint, Highland Park, Benton Harbor, Detroit, be told by Comrade Snyder that you don't have the economic wherewithal to have democracy. Forget your school board, forget your elected board, forget your democratically guaranteed constitutional rights. We're going to tell you what's best for you because we know better than you. You can't afford democracy. So we'll have an emergency manager come in and run things for you and dictate to you what you'll do. We will have election laws that make it impossible for many elderly people, many young people, a big segment of the minority community, make it impossible for them to be able to participate in the election, even though they're verified and registered voters, because of these draconian measures that they're putting in place. But they'll tell you they love democracy. And what really gets me about this, Ammahad, the George W. Bush administration, the most criminal and corrupt presidential administration we've had in the history of this country, spent 8 years trying to find evidence of voter fraud. They couldn't find it. They fired attorney generals all over the country who wouldn't play ball. They couldn't find it. But what we did have ample evidence of was electioneering, was election fraud, where you pull people off the voting rolls because they have the same last name as a convict who moved into the state, because you have the wrong zip code, because you have butterfly ballots that don't work, and more criminally, you have electronic voting machines with no paper trail that have been demonstrated time and time again. You can go on the internet right now and pull up demonstrations by Brad Friedman from the Brad blog to show that they switch votes. We don't have a voting system in this country that would pass the sniff test of a third world banana republic, yet we want to walk around and crow about our democracy and how we do things here. We used to use exit polls as the gold standard for verifying the veracity of elections. A man or a woman just votes and you ask him who you voted for, the election, the exit polls results are going to be 99% accurate, because you're not asking them what they intend to do or what they did last week. You're asking them what they just did. Until 2000, we had never seen exit polls that did not match the outcome in America. Certainly not in the United States, and generally in the world. If we had that, then you'd send in the United Nations and you'd send in the NATO and you'd say, we've got a problem here. This election isn't real. Happened all the time, especially after the breakup of the Soviet Union. Now here, we don't even ask about exit polls anymore. The recall election that just happened in Wisconsin with Walker, the exit polls didn't match the results. The exit polls didn't match what happened in Ohio in 2004 with the Kerry Bush race. You can go example after example. It just goes to show we don't have a democracy anymore. These elections are controlled, and they have the temerity. And, you know, they got to give to the kind of Machiavellian. These guys are clever. We're hearing too much pushback about the way our elections are being run. So rather than talk about the real issue, we're going to distract people and say it's voter fraud. Because now we got the benefit of not only pulling the spotlight away from what we're really doing, stealing elections, but we also can take some of these pesky black folks and young people and the elderly people off the voting rolls, out of our way, in minority Hispanics, and get us the vote that we want. We want the Fox News crowd to vote. That's it. And we want to mitigate, if not eliminate, the ability of these people to beat us. So we're standing in a position now in August 2012 where, by all rights, Obama should win this election in the fall, but I don't know that he will.
Well, you know, these states, man, they, in fact, guy in Pennsylvania, he stood up. This was about maybe 6 weeks, maybe 2 months ago, but he said, you know, oh, Pennsylvania. Romney win it. He
said because of what we've done, his name is Mike Turzay, and he's the House leader of the Republicans. He said because of what we've done, we're going to deliver Pennsylvania to Romney. Now, what's that got to do with democracy? And how would that clown know what's going to happen in the election? Because he knows. He's rigged it so that the minority vote is decapitated, and that they won't have the votes that they should have. And they'll preach to you about love and democracy.
They were saying 87% of all of these, you know, all of these states, they were saying about 87% of the people who would be hurt would be Hispanics, blacks, older people,
of course,
and people who vote Democrats. So 87%.
They know what they're doing.
I mean, why? I mean, you can't. I mean, why is not hurting the Republicans?
Because they're closing the polls down, like you were mentioning earlier, and they're leaving theirs open. They know what they're doing. They know how to target. They're not stupid people. They're very intelligent. They know what they're doing. They have no integrity. They're very sinister. They're evil people. I mean, they're evil people. You have to judge them on their deeds, not what they say. And if you look at them that way.
And one of the things is that before we, it seems like time goes so fast, but before we close, what do you really see in the election? You mentioned this guy could be, Republican can be beat, but you was mentioning a couple of things that.
Well, the vote's going to be the vote tabulation, I should say, is going to be spurious. We're not going to be able to rely on that as an accurate measure of what happens. I think you're going to see a motivated electorate. I really do. I don't think that there's the fear that we have a repeat of what happened in 2002 where the base stayed home. I think the base is motivated to get out and vote. Not so much because they're motivated by Obama, which we could spend another hour talking about how he hasn't lived up to his 2008 campaign promises. But we can look at the fact that people are going to be motivated by the fear and disrespect of Romney. Romney is a criminal. If you look at Romney's actions with Bain, you know, you could talk about all day how many jobs he sent overseas and how many pensions he looted and how many houses he had people thrown out of and people not having health care coverage. You have a man here who has money hidden all over the world, who has $117 million in an IRA. How do you accomplish that? I mean, what do you live to be 400? I mean, some of the stuff he's doing indicates to me criminal activity, and because he's part of the oligarchy, it'll never be divulged and investigated. And I will tell you this, Ammahad, this is my prediction. When the election comes around, November 2nd, that morning, the sun will rise and we still will not have seen Romney's tax returns, because whatever's in there is so horrible, they figure it's better to take the heat for not divulging it than opening up the books and letting people see.
Okay, we could go on and on, man, but...
like always.
Yes, yes. But we'll get more involved in this the next time.
Let's do that.
And we're going to cover some more things about Malcolm and all these things. But again, thanks, man.
Always good, man.
Hey.
All right, bro.
My name is Ammahad Shekarakki, and my guest is Mr. Dennis Burnside, and we'll catch you down the next block. Peace.
Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine, messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, "You are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God."